Hello there, welcome to NTV English News Bulletin. I am Bhavana Casey. In the beginning, we have the headlines. Election Commission to embrace good practices of local election and parliamentary polls. Chief Commissioner Thapalia places another exemplary election. Protesters in Sri Lanka rally against the government crackdown and use of emergency laws, also demand immediate dissolution of parliament and fresh elections. Zelensky says the war in his country started with Russia's occupation of the Crimean Peninsula and should end with the liberation of Crimea. And Yoshihito Nishioka advances into the second round of the Canadian Open. Bianca Andreescu also secures berth in next round. Welcome back. You are with NTV English News Bulletin. Now we have the news in details. The Election Commission has vowed to conduct the upcoming elections in a free, fair and fearless manner while being economic and ensuring the best participation of the voters. During a progress review of election publicity and voters education program of the recently held local level election, the Election Commission has come up with the idea of replicating the best practices of the past and implementing the feedback received earlier for the upcoming federal and provincial assembly elections slated for November the 20th. The Election Commission has expressed its concerns to the poor turnout among the urban and educated people compared to those in remote areas and the uneducated voters. In this regard, the Election Commission has expected proactive role of the media. On the occasion, Chief Election Commissioner Dinesh Kumar Thapalia said Election Commission's activities would be carried out giving equal treatment to all as per the generally accepted principles of the elections, while calling for support from all sides to complete the election in a free, fair and credible manner. The Chief Election Commissioner made it clear that the Election Commission was for establishing cooperation and understanding with all responsible bodies of the state, including the media, and argued that the role of the state-owned media was crucial in the election publicity campaign. As many as 84 people have been diagnosed with coronavirus infection in Sudur Paschim province in a single day on Tuesday. While performing tests on 1,107 people, 84 were found to have contracted with coronavirus, the Sudur Paschim Province Health Directorate assured. As informed, 23 of the infected had returned through Gadda Chowki, 16 through Gauri Fanta, 2 through Pul Ghat and 1 through Jhula Ghat entry point. As the province shares border with India, health desks have been set up in all checkpoints to speed up the COVID test. A total of 60,511 people of Sudur Paschim have been so far diagnosed with the coronavirus in the province. The contagion has claimed 634 lives in the province as of now. The meeting of the House of Representatives is taking place today as well. In the meeting to be held at 1 p.m., there is a possible agenda for Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Dewa to present a proposal with a message to the National Assembly that the above Bill 2078 should be discussed in the House. Prime Minister Dewa himself is likely to present the amendments received on the issue of the Statistics Bill 2078 to the House for the decision. The Water and Sanitation Bill and Kathmandu Valley Public Transport Management Authority Bill are also on the possible agenda of the Parliament. With this update, time to go for a short break, but still to come we have. Welcome back. Now to more updates. Hundreds of Sri Lankans rallied against a government crackdown and the use of emergency laws against peaceful protesters on Tuesday, marching in Colombo to demand answers to the country's worst economic crisis. Protesters led by religious and trade union leaders marched to the country's Independence Square, where they made several demands to the government, including the withdrawal of the emergency laws, the cessation of arresting peaceful protesters, the immediate dissolution of parliament and relief to the people burdened by the economic crisis. Sri Lankans have held street protests for the past 4 months, resulting in the near dismantling of the Rajapaksa family, whom they accused of being responsible for the crisis. Ukrainian President Zelensky had said the war in his country started with Russia's occupation of Crimean Peninsula and should end with the liberation of Crimea. Earlier on Tuesday, powerful explosions rocked a Russian airbase in Crimea and sent towering clouds of smoke over the landscape in what may mark an escalation of the war in Ukraine. At least one person was killed and several others were injured. Russia's defense minister denied the Saki base on the Black Sea had been shelled and said instead that the munitions had blown up there. Crimea was annexed by Russia in 2014 after a referendum which the international community saw as the illegitimate. China's ambassador to Australia, Xiao Qian, said the U.S. must take full responsibility for the tensions on both sides of the Taiwan island following the visit of U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi last week. In an address to the National Press Club in Canberra, Xiao said Pelosi's trip to China's Taiwan region undermined peace and stability across the strait. In response to Pelosi's visit, China sent military ships and planes across the midline that separates the two sides in the Taiwan island and launched missiles into waters surrounding the island. He said China's action is legitimate and justified. With this update, time to go for a short break again, but still to come we have. Welcome back. Now to more updates from the international front. Flames has engulfed a fourth tank at an oil storage facility in western Cuba as the raging fire consumes critical fuel supplies on an island grappling with growing energy crisis. Firefighters and specialists from Mexico and Venezuela helped fight the blaze in the province of Matanzas with boats, planes and helicopters as they sprayed foam on the containers, a first for crews since broiling temperatures had prevented them from doing so earlier. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel said crews have taken full control of the area where the fire is burning and taking the further steps to quell it. The fire at the Matanzas supertanker base has killed at least one person and injured 125 others. SpaceX launched a new batch of satellites from Cape Canaveral in the U.S. state of Florida. The Falcon 9 rocket transported the 52 Starlink satellites, the latest to be added to the company's Internet constellation. As the Internet satellites were sent into the orbit, the rocket's first stage successfully came down to the Earth for a landing on a SpaceX drone ship, which was located off the coast of Florida. In total, SpaceX has sent more than 3,000 Starlink satellites into the orbit. More updates line up on the other side, but before that, let's have what we have coming up next. Artists in Mexico are painting murals a century after the start of the Mexican muralist movement. Although the original movement is over, some artworks tackle similar themes, keeping its spirit alive. Teachers and students at the School of Muralism are on a mission to keep the practice alive, just as their famous predecessors did shortly after the Mexican Revolution. Their home base is converted elementary school in Poxindeze, a town of about 1,000 residents north of Mexico City. Some themes are still pertinent and used in today's murals: war, injustice and oppression, as well as 21st century concerns such as climate change and violence against women. Now to sports. Yoshihito Nishioka, who finished runner-up in last week's City Open, has advanced to the second round of the Canadian Open. The world number 54 Japanese easily took care of France's Benoit pair in a straight set 6-2, 6-3. In women's draw, Bianca Andreescu nosed up an upset on home swell, taking out last week's San Jose champion Daria Kasatkina 7-6, 6-4 in the first round of the National Bank Open. The 2019 champion will now face Alizé Cornet of France in the second round. Well, with this update, we come to the end of this English News Bulletin. But before we say goodbye, let's have a quick reminder of the major stories that have made to the headlines of this edition. Election Commission to embrace good practices of local election in the parliamentary polls. Chief Election Commissioner Thapalia places another exemplary election. Protesters in Sri Lanka rally against government crackdown on use of emergency laws, also demand immediate dissolution of parliament and fresh elections. Zelensky says the war in his country started with Russia's occupation of the Crimean Peninsula and should end with the liberation of Crimea. And Yasuhito Nishioka advances into the second round of the Canadian Open. Bianca Andreescu also secures a berth in next round. Well, that's all we have in this edition of English News Bulletin. We shall see you again with next round of English Bulletin at 6 in the evening. Till then, have a great time ahead and do stay tuned with us. Namaste.